Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Okay, 6:30 now. For the new coming guys, you can scan the event group QR code in the WeChat, so you can join us and then list your question here. We have our special guest, Matthew Sick from Airwallex tonight. It will be our great pleasure to have Matthew to join us tonight and introduce about his background, his story, Airwallex, and how Airwallex can help the accountants and the professionals in the financial area to improve the accountancy. Also, we have another special guest, Erickson from West Capital, to share his opinion and some insightful perspective views. Is the special marketing director in the West Capital. Okay, Matthew, when you are ready, you can take it over. Thank you.
Thanks, Dawson. Let me just share my screen quickly.
Sure.
Thanks everyone for having inviting me to kind of speak today. I want to make sure today is as interactive as possible from a session perspective. So feel free to sort of drop in questions along the way. If there's anything that any of you want further information on, more than happy to sort of jump in and answer any questions from this group at all. I want to make sure that everyone walks away from today with at least something that they've learned that will be useful day to day in their in the work. So, quick introduction to myself. I'm currently kind of the director of commercial and product strategy at Airwallex. Previously, also sort of started a small business myself. I also spent some time teaching accounting at Melbourne Uni itself, and I'm a qualified chartered accountant. However, I've actually never practiced as an accountant. I went down the strategy sort of career pathway instead of doing accounting. But my interests before COVID is to travel to a lot of countries, but now with COVID in place, it has become a lot harder. But yeah, we're still sort of hoping to kind of travel pretty soon. Yeah, that's a bit about myself at a high level. But as Dawson mentioned today, I think we'll chat a bit about sort of what is this whole idea around FinTech. Like, there's a lot of investment, innovation in this space. So we'll kind of discuss that a little bit. We will chat about sort of how FinTech applies to the accounting profession. How does it help you do your job better? How does it help, if any of you are public practice accountants, how does it help your clients day to day as well? So I'll jump straight into the presentation itself, but again, sort of feel free to sort of ask as many questions as you like throughout the rest of today. First thing I wanted to kind of raise today is the fact that this day and age, a lot of businesses are more and more what I call digital and more what I call borderless as well. So as you've seen in COVID, a lot of us, instead of meeting in person and having this, webinar, instead of meeting in sort of like a physical location, we're doing this online. More and more businesses are operating online as well. At the same time, more and more of them are doing transaction across borders. So not just thinking within Australia, but how can I sort of either expand globally? How do I hire employees globally, etc. And so what I mean by this digital and borderless is, today it's hard to find any single business, that have a growth mindset where they don't have customers overseas, or they don't buy any products or suppliers overseas. They don't buy any software, overseas from, the US, for example, or, any businesses that don't employ staff overseas. Like more and more, like whatever business you're in, even if you're a hospitality business, even if you might be sort of operating a very small business, chances are you might be paying for a software overseas. You might be, importing some products without even knowing that you're buying from a supplier overseas. And we're seeing this trend pick up even more post-COVID. And I think that is an exciting trend that is what we believe is the future for small and medium-sized businesses going forward. And that's sort of why Airwallex was kind of founded, where our core mission is as a FinTech company is to kind of transform how businesses sort of move and manage money, both locally and also globally. And just a quick sort of introduction about Airwallex, who we are. Essentially, we're backed by quite a number of investors. So if you haven't heard about Airwallex, we are founded in Melbourne, Australia. We just turned 6 years old now, so we were founded in 2015. We've raised funds from investors like Tencent, Alibaba, Sequoia in China, and a bunch of other investors like ANZ and Salesforce Ventures as well. We're now grown to more than 1,000 employees globally, and we just raised our last funding round very recently at a $5.5 billion valuation. So we're on a rapid expansion around the world now. And essentially, what I say Airwallex does really well is Airwallex is essentially, to simplify what we do, we are what I call a complete business account. So think about every business needs a business bank account. We are 10 times, 100 times better than your traditional business banking account that you get from any of the major banks. And that is something that we are very proud of. And I'll kind of explain a bit more throughout the presentation around what we do, how we're better, how we're different from the banks itself. But that's something that I just wanted to kind of summarize as, if you think about Airwallex, think of Airwallex as your global business bank account, the single bank account that you need to run your business essentially. Before I kind of go into a lot more detail around Airwallex and what we do, I think just quickly, I wanted to kind of cover off sort of this whole area of FinTech. So a lot of people kind of think about FinTech, they kind of wonder, what is FinTech? Why should I care? And I think FinTech essentially is a short form term for financial technology. It is sort of anything that deals with financial services, essentially, is what FinTech is. A lot of people confuse FinTech and blockchain. Just want to clarify that blockchain is one part of FinTech, one example of type of financial technology that exists in the market. But there are a whole range of other financial technologies that exist. So, we have people in payments, we have people doing sort of, card issuing. We have a lot of sort of innovation in terms of buy now, pay later, sort of the next version of credit cards, for example, that all are different types of financial technology. And this sector as a whole is growing, right? And you can see this in terms of kind of like in Australia itself, not counting kind of the rest of the world, this industry has kind of grown a lot. Recently, you guys might have seen Afterpay, it's sort of now being acquired by a US player. They're now sort of hitting, $30-40 billion market cap. Airwallex is at $5.5 billion market cap. This sector as a whole is growing, and we're starting to sort of innovate a lot faster than most of the banks are doing in this space. Specifically, what this means for accountants, business advisors like yourself, or whether you're in-house finance teams, I think there's a lot of innovation happening in FinTech that I think it's very important for accountants to be sort of thinking about things around sort of, for example, how do I, as an accountant, how do I spend less time on data entry? How do I automate a lot of processes that are very manual today? There are a lot of innovation around how do I automate sort of like collections, receivables? How do I improve my cash flow as a business? And that is something that a lot of accountants and businesses look to sort of FinTech to kind of deliver. What are new and innovative ways to get paid, right? And what are new and innovative for customers to pay a business? And there's a lot of innovation here. For example, I mentioned buy now, pay later, etc. With a lot of data, you get a lot more insightful reporting around cash flow, around business intelligence as well. And I think all of this collectively, what it does drive for a lot of businesses is essentially, if you think about FinTech, the way I like to think about this is 15 years ago, cloud accounting came into the market, like Xero and a bunch of accounting software came into the market. Prior to cloud accounting coming into the market, a lot of accountants were relying on desktop versions of accounting software, like you have to install a CD basically for an accounting software. And when Xero came in, Xero was very, very early in the game in terms of setting up cloud accounting. But if you think about now, sort of fast forward 10 years to today, like most of you would work on some sort of cloud accounting software, whether it's Xero, whether it's QuickBooks, whether it's MYOB. And the number of apps that exist in the market for accountants now these days, like payroll apps, like a lot of these apps, that transformation has kind of taken place, I think, like somewhere between 2010 and 2015, with kind of the early days. 2015 to 2020 and 2021 is when like cloud accounting adoption has kind of taken off quite significantly. And I almost kind of see the same happening in FinTech now, where we're in the very early stages of FinTech. You know, there is a lot of innovation happening in this space. There are a lot of sort of not new digital business banking solutions being put on the market. And I think as business advisors and accountants, I think you guys all play a very, I guess, important role in terms of advising your clients on how they should think about adopting technology, how they should think about sort of like moving to the next era of tech innovation. And I think this is where, if we'll kind of go through a number of sort of use cases today in terms of, and just using Airwallex as one example of a FinTech player here. If any of these sort of, I guess, use cases resonates with this group of people, this group of accountants, I guess, it'll be interesting to sort of see how you guys, as business advisors, sort of drive the adoption and uptake of new technology within your client base itself. Just gonna pause there, see any questions from the group so far. Dawson?
Yeah, Matt, we got 3 questions so far. If you check the chat group, I have 3 here. The first is, what are the challenges for the Airwallex team to expand the business in Australian market? As this is a smaller market compared with China and other Asian countries. How does Airwallex to address these challenges? That's the first question.
Right. Okay. Is this for Airwallex specifically, like how we are expanding in Australia?
Yeah, kind of, maybe. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I think like Australia is a much smaller market compared to China, but I think level of competition is also a lot lower compared to China. China has a lot of businesses, and so although China is a very big market, there is a lot of competition in that market, versus in Australia is a much smaller market, far fewer competition in Australia itself. And I think that is how we have sort of expanded very rapidly. I'd say that like for Airwallex specifically, China is still one of our big focus markets currently, like China, Hong Kong, sort of, you know, going to Singapore as well. But Australia is also another sort of focus market for us, because there's not a lot of FinTech penetration in Australia today, and that's where we see ourselves being able to sort of differentiate in the market itself.
Great. The second question here is, we see several competitors are coming to provide a payment and account solution to small and medium enterprise SMEs. So how does Airwallex to be standing out, you know, compare with them?
Right. How about maybe this is a good segue for me to kind of go into a bit more about what we do in Airwallex, and hopefully that answers this question. So maybe sure. I can kind of go through the rest of the presentation, and then I can look back for questions.
That'd be great.
Right. Why don't I kind of, what I want to do today is not go through a detailed explanation around what Airwallex does. But I just wanted to kind of give everyone sort of a quick sort of summary of what are the different problems that we solve in the market today. One sort of problem that we solve a lot is these days, a lot of businesses, as I mentioned, no longer just operating locally, right? A lot of businesses, a lot of our customers have customers overseas. And so when you have customers overseas and when you have employees overseas, sometimes you need to kind of, as a business, you need to set up an international bank account. Or alternatively, some of you might be operating in Australia, but you might have a client, say, that is based out of China or based in Singapore, for example, and they want to set up a bank account in Australia, right? For them sitting in China or sitting in Australia, to set up a bank account in Australia, it's very, very difficult. For an Australian sort of business to set up a bank account, say in the US, it's also very, very challenging. And a lot of times, sometimes these things take weeks. We have one client who took 17 months to set up a Europe bank account for their business. And with COVID, etc., like it's hard to travel. You can't sort of fly to another country and set up a bank account. You can't visit a branch, a foreign bank branch to kind of set up a bank account. Now, the difference here with what traditional banks do and what Airwallex does is Airwallex allows you to essentially sign up to Airwallex once, and you set up, you complete your application process one time. Once you complete your application process, essentially you get access to international bank accounts very, very easily on the Airwallex software. So I'll give you an example of how it looks like. I'm just going to log into a demo account just to kind of showcase how this works in real life. Just give me a second while I log in. But essentially, you do the sign up process, you submit your documents like you do with any sort of bank account. The difference is with Airwallex, you do everything digitally. So you don't need to visit a physical bank branch to sort of sign any paper documents, for example. All the entire application process is online. And then once you get approved, usually this takes anywhere between 24 to 72 hours. So anywhere between 1 to 3 days of application. Once you get approved, essentially if say tomorrow you want to expand into the US and you need to set up a US bank account, all you need to do is just go into the account itself, select global account, hit create global account, select which country you want to enter into. Let's say you want to do US. All you need to do is just give the account a nickname. So let's call it US account, for example. Hit create global account. Whoops, sorry. I might have hit my maximum. Let's try another country. Let's try UK. And that is how quickly we've set up like a UK account for a business. And that's the same like in my USD example earlier, because I've done this demo so many times now, I've hit my maximum limit of USD accounts in my account here. But essentially you can do that same process, repeat it sort of 5 times. You can do the same for Europe, same for Japan, same for Hong Kong. You basically end up with an international bank account that you can actually use to collect funds, collect your client revenue overseas. So let's say you have a client based out in New York, for example, and you need to kind of collect revenue from that client and you need to send them an invoice. All you need to do is just click the USD account. You have your bank account number, you have an ACH routing number, which is the equivalent of a BSP number in the US. And this is an account that's located in the United States, right? So you can just provide those bank details to your client that's located in the US very, very easily, and they can then pay you as a business. And that money then comes into your Airwallex account very easily. And the difference with the Airwallex account is that you can actually hold your funds in multiple currencies. So it's the one account that you need to do transactions globally, right? So you no longer need to set up one bank account with Commonwealth Bank and only deal in Australian dollars. You can essentially set up an international bank account here, international business account here, and essentially collect and hold in multiple currencies, depending on where your business sort of operates in. So that's one example of a use case where we're essentially sort of saving a lot of precious time. Every time you need to expand your business into a new country, every time you need to set up an international bank account, we do that in essentially 30 seconds to get that global account set up for businesses. The next most exciting thing about Airwallex is what we're very, very well known for, which is our foreign exchange rates in market. So we did a benchmarking exercise a while ago, and we looked at how much does it cost to convert 10,000 US dollars to Australian dollars. And you see here, I'll show you this chart, but this chart is not as amazing as sort of showing you a live, potentially a live demo here. But if we go into Westpac, for example, as an example here, I could kind of do a live comparison of what, based on today's date, sort of if I wanted to convert 10,000 US dollars into Australian dollars, you know, this is a live exchange rate that you get in Airwallex. If you want to convert that amount, 10,000 US dollars would get you 14,000 Australian dollars. If you did the same in, sorry, do 10,000 US dollars gets you 13,600 Australian dollars, you know, with a traditional bank here, as an example. Versus you get 14,000 here for 10,000 US dollars, and with the bank you get 13,600, which is roughly about a $400 difference in terms of the actual amount that you receive for this conversion. Right? And if you think about, some of you might be running businesses where you might be paying suppliers overseas, you might be importing products, you might have employees working overseas, you might pay for software subscriptions overseas as well. This is where the foreign exchange costs can kind of add up very, very quickly for your business. And by sort of using Airwallex's sort of FX rates, you can actually save a lot in the process. And it's super simple. You get a live rate, you hit next, you know, you confirm conversion, and the amount just converts within your account itself. And so you just move 10,000 US dollars into sort of 14,000 Australian dollars in just a couple of clicks online, without having to pick up the phone, call anyone. You don't have to bother negotiating the rates. These are all locked in. We give you essentially a very, very competitive exchange rate. So you don't have to bother picking up the phone and speaking to someone to negotiate. On the Airwallex side, we also don't have to sort of pick up the phone and sort of negotiate with you on exchange rates as well. So it becomes kind of a more digital first solution in market, which is what we want to sort of drive in this day and age. So that is sort of two quick examples of how like Airwallex essentially like solves sort of pain points in the market. I think I'll just kind of go through very quickly the next use case for Airwallex essentially is sometimes we've had a lot of clients where they want to get their employees to spend sort of with the budget, right? So for example, if I run a business and I want to have sales employees take clients out to lunch, the current process of what a lot of businesses do is they get their employees to pay first with their personal credit cards and then submit an expense claim later on. And when you submit an expense claim, it takes the employee a lot of time and effort. It takes sort of finance a lot of effort to sort of review that spend, sort of approve that spend, put it into payroll, you know, process that transaction, and then process that payment back or that reimbursement back into the employee sort of bank account. It's a very sort of time-consuming process in that way. With Airwallex is actually another use case that a lot of our customers do with us. It's very easy to issue cards and process, like essentially pass on those cards to your employees as part of the process. I'll show you an example here where I could sort of essentially create, let's say, a card. I can just kind of fill in details here. Give me a second. And essentially, as part of the process, like, you know, we need to kind of collect some details around sort of mobile number, date of birth, address, etc. But once you've done that, we can actually issue cards very, very quickly to employees. And I'll show you sort of how good these cards are. Essentially, each card, you have kind of your card number, expiry date, security code. You can issue those cards in like 5 minutes essentially to your employees. And each card comes with some sort of limit, right? And so you could essentially put limits to the card. So as an example, what I mentioned earlier, let's say you want to give a card out to your employee for sales sort of purposes, for them to take the client out for lunch. You could essentially say maximum you could spend per transaction, per lunch that you take your clients out to is $200 per transaction. We don't need a daily limit on it, but each month, each salesperson has a budget of, let's say, $1,000 to take their client out to lunch. So setting those card limits give you a very, very good control. And let's call this sort of a sales card, for example. Gives you a very, very good level of control over your employees and how they're spending day to day. And so if you click on that, it basically then just kind of creates that card. It sets that limit, you know, and you can ensure that your employees or your client's employees don't spend above that budget or that limit. So, which makes it a very, very good sort of solution to empower, I guess, employees to essentially day to day make transactions on behalf of the company, whilst having maximum control over it without having to, I guess, go through very, very time-consuming sort of reimbursement processes, which today a lot of businesses do. And when you go through the reimbursement process as a finance person, oftentimes you don't actually get to see how much your employees are actually spending until you get the reimbursement claim, which can happen sort of 1 to 2 months after the expenses actually happen. So a lot of our clients right now is December. A lot of you are trying to close, you know, the year-end sort of books before January hits. And a lot of finance teams that we know of are actually going out to chase their employees to say, hey, if you have any receipts, any expenses, please submit those expenses to us so that we can kind of process those before the year end happens. Instead of chasing your employees for this, instead of going through that process itself, what you can do is you can actually issue cards to your employees, get them to spend the company's money, but then you set a limit on it to prevent sort of misuse of the card, right? So it's a new way of thinking about employee cards, essentially. It's also a very, like, some of our clients have also used this as a way of motivating, incentivizing employees as well. So, you know, this day and age, we all work in a very virtual environment. You could essentially give out a card to your employees and say, hey, each of you get a $50 or $100 budget. You can go out and catch up for coffee with some of your colleagues as well. And here's a budget, $100 per employee that you can use every month towards that, which is quite a new way of thinking about how you drive sort of team empowerment, employee empowerment within businesses as well. To kind of finish off, like, there are a whole lot of extra features that Airwallex offers today. I don't want to go too deep into every single kind of feature that we have. But what I want to sort of cover off again, just to quick recap, is we are your international business account that you can use for global transactions. We save a lot of costs on FX. You can issue our employee cards, give them out to employees, control their spend very, very easily. Pricing wise, we don't charge any monthly fees at the moment to sign up to an Airwallex business account. It's free to sign up. The only time we make money at the moment is based on whenever you do a foreign exchange conversion. As I mentioned earlier, we are one of the cheapest providers in the market for foreign exchange conversions. And we deliver lots and lots of savings compared to the big banks. And so it's almost like free to try out, free to sort of sign up. And the other sort of cool features that we have on the accountant side of things is we have a Xero integration that we built. So you can get bank feeds into Xero very, very easily. We also have what's known as a multi-user access and multi-business toggle. So if some of you are accountants and you ever want to have a view-only access to your client's bank accounts, It's actually very, very easy to set up on the Airwallex account itself. All you need to do is just get your clients to sign up to Airwallex. They can then invite you as a user. And when they invite you as a user, they could essentially, let's say, if your clients want to invite you as a user, they can essentially grant you a view-only access very easily. I hit send invitation. We've kind of sent off that email very, very easily to invite you guys as accountants to the account. And then when you log into the Airwallex account, if you have, let's say, 10 clients or 20 clients with Airwallex, similar to Xero or similar to other accounting software, you have one single email that you use to log into the Airwallex account. You can essentially swap between accounts very easily on the top left corner. Say you have 10 clients with Airwallex, you can essentially sort of toggle between each of the 10 accounts. So you can actually look at your client's business bank account. You can look at sort of transactions that they have. If you're doing bookkeeping, for example, for your clients, it's very, very easy to kind of look at their accounts itself. And that helps you kind of do your job a lot better as well, where you can provide value add sort of advisory, cash flow advisory, etc. To your customers as part of that process as well. So I'll probably pause there for a while. See, Dawson, if you have any questions from the group at all so far. Conscious that I've kind of gone through this very, very quickly as well.
Sure. I think you answered part of the question too. We see several competitors, in the market, how does Airwallex stand out? How do you address the challenges? Okay, I got a question 3, and possibly you can ask part of it if you have any idea regarding this. The question is, Airwallex recruits many software engineers and the product managers in the market this month. Some may worry, from the accounting or financial background, they may worry about the future career, people can be replaced by the IT guys. So what do you think? Do you have any suggestion about this? How do the accountants to embrace the future challenge and this trend?
Yeah, I think good question, Dawson. I think
thank you.
There's been a shift in terms of the accounting career, I would say, sort of 20, 30 years ago versus what the accountants do today and what I see accountants doing sort of 20, 30 years in the future, right? Back in the day, I think a lot of the value that accountants add to their clients is to basically spend a lot of time doing journal entries, doing ledger entries to make sure that there's accuracy in the financial reports, produce kind of an income statement, produce a profit and loss statement, produce a balance sheet to give clients kind of a view around their financial situation, right? That was like 20, 30 years ago. Xero has basically taken that off, right? Like nowadays with Xero, it's so easy to kind of do that. Xero or MYOB or QuickBooks, whatever accounting software that this group is using, it's very easy to kind of get that statement produced. It's like takes essentially 2 clicks as long as you've done your ledger entries, as long as you've kind of done your bank reconciliation. It takes like essentially a few clicks. You generate those reports very, very easily for your customers today. So you're spending way less time there. And where clients, like I've seen a lot of demand for business advisory, right? So in the past, it used to be called business accountants. These days, a lot of the role title has changed to business advisors almost. And the role of the accountant is essentially to provide advice to their clients. And the top sort of accountants are the ones, I guess, who are able to sort of provide that level of financial advice to their customers, right? And so I wouldn't necessarily be too worried about, if business banking is going to automate, like business banking eventually is going to be so automated that I actually don't have a job anymore. I think I would see that as a positive trend, which means that accountants have more free time now to actually think about how do I add value to my customers? How do I actually advise them on how do I grow a business, right? And if you think about the traditional role or the main role of a CFO or chief financial officer in a lot of big businesses, the role is not they don't call it the chief accounting officer, they call it the chief financial officer because the role of the chief financial officer is to essentially drive sort of the business or propel the business for growth in the future and manage all things to do with finances, right? So not just the accounting side of it, which is one part of it, but how do you think about revenue growth? How do you think about cost control? How do you think about business automation, processes, etc.? And those are things that I've started seeing a lot of accountants move into. A lot of accountants these days are very deep into the zero app ecosystem and recommending apps to their customers as well. I think that's going to be a trend going forward. And the more I think accountants can embrace the different types of technology of simplifying processes for their clients, the more value they're going to be adding to their clients, the stickier the relationship is going to be with their clients as well.
Thank you, Matt. That's great. Sharing the ideas about added value to the company, added value to the clients, and added value to the professionals themselves. Okay, I have another question for you. Can the individual do a payment like paying the tuition fee, shopping, e-commerce, or transfer the money globally through Airwallex platform in the future? Because right now we can only do the SME, right?
Yes, correct. So currently we support sort of SME, so like more small and medium-sized businesses. So we have clients like anyone who has an ABN essentially, can sign up to Airwallex, even if you're a sole trader or if you're a company. We currently don't have plans to do individuals we're building a lot of advanced features essentially. So some of the features that I mentioned on this page, for example, the zero integration, multi-user access, like those are advanced features that we see a lot of business banking don't offer to their customers, that we're trying to build and digitize and automate these processes for SMEs. And so if we build some of these advanced features, we want to focus more on the SME market than on the individual market today.
Cool. Thanks, Matt.
No worries. Any other questions?
I have two for Eric and one for you. Probably I can give you the question number 6 later.
Sure. Shall we pass on to Eric then, Dawson?
Eric, yes, please.
Okay, all right. Thanks, Dawson. Thanks, Matthew. Right, so I'm gonna share our experience in partnership or partnering with Airwallex, and I'll also share a bit of experience, of my own, and the feedback that we have got from our clients who use Airwallex. So in sharing the experience, I'm probably talk about the feelings that we have. The first one is that we find it very easy and simple to use. As Matthew has shown, the interface is easy and simple. You can just make a few clicks and you can complete a transaction, essentially in a minute. And if you're trying to find something, you can easily navigate the interface and locate what you need. We think this is very important because this is what users expect from a fintech business rather than a traditional bank or foreign exchange operator. And that's also one of the things that make fintech and Airwallex stand out and different from others. And secondly is that it really saves you money. So we use big banks before for foreign exchange in the main. We use Commonwealth Bank, which probably has one of the most terrible foreign exchange rates in the country. So we lose hundreds of dollars per transaction, but we had no choice. So either us or our clients had to keep using very unfriendly service provided by the bank until we find there is good alternative, good fintechs trying to tackle this problem, and the savings that the companies get simply from the foreign exchange transactions is huge if you add them together. So that's a real savings that's quite important as well. And also, I think we have came across, we've got feedback from the clients that, they have quite good customer service personnel from Airwallex looking after them. because for the traditional accountants or the users using Airwallex as a new tool, they always come across problems, even if it's already quite simple and easy. And when that happened, we were told that Airwallex has assigned, usually they will assign SME, a specialist or client service person to the users, and whenever they have problems or questions, they just email them, and the questions got solved or attended in a fairly quick turnaround time, which is also essential for the SMEs, because they just can't afford waiting for a few days to get an answer. And that's, again, if you compare that to the traditional banks, that's usually a headache as well. And I guess the last thing, which is particularly good about the FinTech and new FinTech business and Airwallex, is that we can see that they continue to improve their product offerings and service. I remember last year, and Matthew, correct me if I'm wrong, I remember last year you didn't have the employee card or virtual card, or you're still trying to roll out these functionalities. But this year it's already online. Users are using it. SMEs are using it. And some of our clients, they talk to your customer service person and they say, oh, we wish you could have some more or new functionalities. And the answer they got, yes, is that yes, we've got quite a few feedback on that. We are working on that, and you'll probably see that very soon. So this, you're probably never gonna get this from a big bank. You can make a complaint, but it probably won't get attended too much. So all of this is simply making the SMEs, making the SME lives easier. And I think that's the goal of the broader FinTech businesses, of course, including Airwallex. And the trend is so obvious that in a few years' time, a large portion or large number of businesses are going to simply use FinTech to replace many of the functions and things they used to use at the traditional banks. So that's all from me.
That's great, Eric. Thanks. Eric, I got one question here for you, just from regarding the investment evaluation. How do investment banks or institutional investors assess the valuation of unicorns like Airwallex or other FinTech company, as they are not listed yet? Just give us a brief idea about valuation.
Right. I think that comes down to value or valuation of private companies, and there are a few methodologies that are commonly used by investment banks or VCs or investors. They are not new at all. They still look at DCF, discounted cash flow. They still look at the comparable transactions or companies, and for the technology-based companies, and because many of them haven't realized net profit or any profit in the early days, it did become sort of an issue for many investors to value them. And since then, people are starting to look at the revenue, starting to look at the number of customers, etc., and base their valuation model on those metrics instead of profits. So this is a big subject, and we can probably talk about this all day long. But to put it short, there are ways to value private companies, and also apart from the models or financial models, the other side of valuation is how much the investors are going to pay or are willing to pay for that. And that's a pretty good guidance for the early stage companies as well, because even if the model shows a 10 billion valuation, but the investors are only gonna put in money based on a 200 million valuation, and that tells something, and that will set some standard for the valuation as well. So hope that answers this question, Dawson.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Eric. Fair enough. Hey, Matt, possibly Eric, you both can answer this question. It's about the crypto. Will Airwallex provide service in cryptocurrencies in future? What do you think about the future of crypto after the market collapse in the past weeks?
Yeah, I can share my thoughts, and then Eric, feel free to sort of add. I think question around, will Airwallex provide any sort of ability to transact or hold cryptocurrencies? I'd say not in 2022. In the future, I can't say for sure, but I can say not at least for the first half of 2022. We'll kind of reassess as we go along. I do think that blockchain as a technology is great. Cryptocurrency, there's like a lot of there's a what I call kind of a adoption curve, right? So like you think about sort of like electric cars, for example, there is almost like an adoption curve of electric cars. Like, Tesla started sort of like maybe 15 years ago or something, maybe less, like maybe 10 years ago. And like in the early days, like no one really bought electric cars, right? Like it takes a while before people adopt it a lot, and then it becomes mainstream. And I think that like cryptocurrency is in a very, very early stage currently. It will be used a lot on the consumer side of things first, before we explore sort of cryptocurrency in B2B payments, for example. That's at least my personal view. It does not represent the views of Airwallex, but it's a question around what is the right time of supporting cryptocurrencies. And immediately at this point in time, I don't see a massive sort of use case for it. And so Airwallex is sort of thinking about it and assessing the market as we go along. In terms of kind of like future of crypto market collapse, as I said, like it's still the fact that it's still in the early stages of adoption means that this currency has very like huge fluctuations in terms of value. And that's why you see it sort of go up or down very, very quickly in like a matter of days. And I think that once you drive a lot more adoption in the future, then this currency may become more stable over time, but it's probably too early for me to kind of speculate anything at this stage.
Thanks, Matt. What do you think, Eric, regarding cryptocurrency and whether financial institutions should provide service to the cryptocurrencies? Probably not this year, almost past about 2022 or 2023.
Yeah, I think many are still observing. And the policymakers, the regulators, they're also looking at this closely. And it really depends, and we don't have a crystal ball in our hand. We will just wait and see.
All right, cool. Thanks, Eric. All right, I got another question for you both. Possibly this is a uni student. Do you have any advice for the uni students who study accounting and finance to prepare for future career? Thanks.
I would say if you are studying accounting and finance now, as I mentioned earlier, the accounting and finance is no longer about sort of debits and credits anymore necessarily. It's like understanding debits and credits is very important to do your job. But ultimately, it's a lot about the value add that you're adding to your customers, right? Whether you're working as in-house sort of accountant for a business, or whether you're working as a public practice accountant supporting sort of your clients, every accountant that I know thinks about how do they add value, right? Like if you're a tax accountant, for example, how do you figure out how to minimize tax for your or not minimize, but optimize, tax for your customers, right? And to do that, you really need to think about sort of strategies, and I think tech plays a huge role in that. And the faster you sort of get yourself familiar, attend a lot of these sessions, similar to the session that Dawson is hosting today, the more you find out about newest technologies that are coming in the accounting sort of space, the more you're able to recommend things to your clients, the more you're able to sort of build a stronger advisory style relationship with your clients. That is sort of where you'll be sort of very successful long-term as an accountant.
Great, thanks, Matt. What do you think, Eric? Any advice for the future career for the student who are still working on the accounting and the finance area?
Right. If I were to give one piece of advice, I would say that to keep an open mind would be very important, and even more important than before, because Matthew has already said that, you know, the roles are changing, technology is driving virtually everything, and in a few years' time, accounting and finance, even include very traditional, you know, banks, even investment banks, and even VCs, etc., are going to be very different than before. And in this environment, such an environment, to keep an open mind will make sure you can, you know, still keep the pace, and you probably don't want to, you know, stick to the traditional way of doing accounting and finance, because it's not going to be the case in the future. That's for sure. So yeah, that's going to be very important if you can keep an open mind.
Cool. Thanks, Eric. All right, before the last question, I would like to give more details about this webinar to our participants in this chat room. All the slides, all the recorded link will be provided in the WeChat group. So everyone who wants to join us, I can show you the QR code later. Don't worry about if you missed the first part when Matthew showed us. And this is a great webinar we have, and it's our great pleasure to have Matthew and Eric join us tonight. So the last question we give to Matt. Can Matt show us more details and give more, you know, introduction about Airwallex platform and its future business plan? Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Dawson. I guess to wrap things up, I think where I'll share maybe where Airwallex was, you know, 2 years ago, what we've built today, and then what we have in store for the future, right? Which is quite exciting. So 2 years ago, we had essentially one main product, which was FX, right? So we do foreign exchange as a core functionality. So if you need to convert any currencies, we're one of the lowest, cheapest providers of foreign currency in the market. Last year and this year, as Eric mentioned, we launched a lot of new products and services. We launched sort of employee cards, for example. So you can essentially issue employee cards to your employees. Very easy. You can sort of like issue corporate cards. You know, you could kind of spend, pay for your marketing spend on Airwallex card. So more and more, we're essentially transforming ourselves from just being an FX provider to being a business account for SMEs. Next year and the year after, we're going to develop more and more products and solutions. One of the things that we're just launched and we're in sort of we're going to continue improving is what we call payment acceptance. So the ability to sort of process credit card transactions online. So, you know, depending on what services, what business each of you are in or your clients are in. For example, if you're an accountant and you want to invoice your customer and you want to give them the option of paying you by credit card, you can essentially very easily generate a link in Airwallex. Your customers, you can send that link to your customers. You can send that link in WeChat. You can send that link in you know, WhatsApp. You can send that link in an email to your customers and say, or attach it into an invoice and say, click here to pay. They click that link. It tells them they need to pay you, you know, 500 Australian dollars. They can put in their credit card details, the kit process, and then that amount goes straight into your Airwallex account. Right? So a very easy way for you to collect money from your customers, essentially. So some of those things are things that we're building at the moment. And as Eric mentioned earlier, we're building more and more solutions, essentially to help you collect revenue very easily, to help you hold and convert currencies, and to help you spend money, well, not spend money easily, but like spend money, you know, through
Wisely.
Wisely, yes, that's right. And so more and more we're becoming essentially the most easy, I think our ambition is to become the most easy to use business account in Australia and around the world, right? So like you don't have to, you know, be on the phone for half an hour calling your bank to ask them like, how do I create a new login for a new finance team member who just joined the business, right? So everything is digital, everything is just a few clicks. You can actually get that all done. Saves you a lot of time, saves your clients a lot of time. And I think if any of you are interested in finding out more information about Airwallex, how we work, how we partner with accountants, how we sort of can support either you or your customers. One of my colleagues, Carl, is here on the call as well. Carl, do you want to just do a quick introduction of yourself and maybe just leave your contact details in the chat so people can kind of reach out to you and ask you if they have any further questions?
Yes, that'd be great. Kyle, show your face.
Hi everyone, my name is Kyle. I run the partnership team, particularly for accounting firms in Australia. So please feel free to reach out to me. I'm going to drop my email and my mobile number in there as well, so that you can reach out to me whenever you want to have a chat and know more about Airwallex.
That'd be great, Kyle. Thanks so much. Yeah, I think that this will be the end of our webinar for tonight, and ACAA will have other webinar before Christmas in the coming weeks. Also, I wish all the guys joining us. Thanks, Matthew. Thanks, Eric and Kyle. Happy Christmas, happy year end, and prepare for the future challenges. And I hope we can catch up very soon in 2022. Thank you. All the best.